one religion, one language. Simple, right? So, a new democracy is born with all these: one land, one language, one race. Turkey is not a modern new country. It's just the old Ottomans continuing. It's very interesting that the Turks think that Kemal Atatürk, Mustafa Kemal, is a secularist. Yes, he did some things, but only days before he decided to become a secular person, he nearly declared himself to be the religious leader of Turkey in Balıkesir in February 1923. He spoke to people saying that why should we talk about the general politics and everything at other places when we can talk about it in mosques. Mosques are the place where these should be talked about. And then from Lausanne, from the Lausanne meetings comes İsmet İnönü, his helper. He says, look, the West wants you secular. West will not allow another religious country. They have to have a secular country. He turns like this. That night he becomes a secular. But the thing that doesn't change is the mentality. And that's why we have a one religion, one person, one leader, one this, one that. And it has to be abided by in religious format. You cannot criticize Mustafa Kemal for a long time. It's against the law. Now it's changing a bit. Lausanne gave some rights to the minorities, especially, remember, now that all the non-Muslims are gone, finished. Now we have Muslims, but there's still no problems. Hey, they are not all Turks, okay? Let's solve the problems one by one, cleanse them one by one. Religious, non-Muslims are gone, but now we have non-Turks, mainly the Kurds, that are about 20 to 25% of the population. And Lausanne gives them, and Kemal Atatürk and the new modern Turkey has promised them some things in writing, in Lausanne treaties, that they can speak their language, they have autonomy. They will continue in their culture. They will have their own regions. The minute new Turkey emerges, this is completely forgotten and banned. For maybe 50, 60 years, it was illegal to speak a word of Kurdish. Kurdish, yes. You cannot speak Kurdish. I remember in my high school days, just because I uttered the word Kurd, look, just Kurd, all my friends' eyes popped out like this. How can you say this? Shh, somebody will hear. What, are you crazy? So this is 20-25% of your population is Kurdish, and you can't even utter the name of it. So there were Kurdish revolts, and the new country is born with the leadership of Kemal Atatürk. And Kemal Atatürk decides that Turkey is going to be capitalist. 1923, there's the Izmir Economic Conference, where they opened the doors to foreign investments and foreign capital. They understood that you can't do capitalism all by yourself. You needed the capitals to come in. And it's very interesting that even though Turkey was killing, openly murdering the leaders of the Communist Party at the time, Soviet Union looked favorably. Because they needed a buffer country from the attacks of imperialism. And if they could get Turkey to be just kind of like independent, just, not attack us, that was a gain. So they understood the nature of this new country, but they had nothing to do. Right at their border, a country that is going towards capitalism, all they needed was a non-aggression kind of understanding. And this is how capitalism developed in Turkey. These are the miners all working, and you can see the soldiers waiting and organizing the work. This is the Turkish army working the miners away. Now the problem, Turkey had a problem. Yes, we want to be capitalist, fine. But the problem is that the seed of capitalists, the capitalist class, were non-Muslims. Mainly the Armenians, and we killed them all. This is the genesis of Turkish capitalism today. It is with blood. The Armenians went through the genocide. Their entire properties were confiscated, and that formed the initial capital of the Turkish capitalists today. It is stolen property. It is not, how Marx explains, how trade and, you get this and that becomes the initial capital and you build on it. No. We just stole it fair and square. Okay? Fair and square. And these are the, you had little, like workshops where you did, carpets and things. Okay, so we have gone through that. Capitalism in its imperialism. Okay, the age of bourgeois democratic revolutions are over in the age of imperialism. Actually, I'm going to do a suggestion that maybe one day we have a session here where we discuss the theory of revolutions. Because what we're talking about, and I'm going to say it again, is that fascism does not go with voting, with elections. It does not. So that brings us to the solution of talking about revolutions. But there is not one size fits all. A revolution in the United States may be much different than revolution in Egypt, may be much different than in Turkey or in Venezuela. So we have to look at the structure, the social structure of those countries, economic structure, historical structure, and then come up with these theories. But in general, in the age of imperialism, where the bourgeoisie is different and the production is different, so the democratic revolutions led by the bourgeoisie are over. We don't have that anymore. We are living under imperialism, guys. Why am I saying this? Because there's quite a few people who think that if we can work with the bourgeoisie, with the bosses, with the capitalists, we can convince them to bring more democracy to countries like Turkey. If we can just convince them. No, that's over, that's finished. They are not doing this because their heart is dark. No, because they have to. If I were there, I would do the same to survive. This is how the capitalists, the comprador capitalists in these countries have to work, because the rate of profit that they receive from their workers, they have to share it with the bosses in the United States, in Europe, in England, Germany. So they are squeezed, and they're going to put the squeeze on the people. This is how they're going to survive, guys. And in order to do that squeeze on the people, they need harsh measures. With a stick on the head, and like the soldiers that you see, this is how production goes on, so that people work nearly for pennies. And there's a name for this. It's called fascism. If bourgeois democracy corresponds to pre-monopoly stage of capitalism, fascism corresponds to monopoly stage of capitalism, so on and so forth. As capitalism enters continuous crisis mode, the working classes will be tasked to pay for the endless crisis. And this can only be achieved by continuous fascism. Continuous fascism. Continuous fascism. It doesn't come and go like in Germany we saw, well, fascism came and they were gone. Hey, look, fascism comes because of a reason. Because capitalists cannot resolve their crisis of the moment. Well, what if the crisis is continuous? Turkey was born into fascism, which the only way the workers, Kurds, religious groups were kept in line. Turkey could become capitalist only by an iron fist, top-down state fascism in the age of imperialism. Okay, so all dissent was brutally crushed. These are the Kurds who they were all saying is that, hey, you know, you signed an agreement with us, Lausanne Treaty. Just do it. Let us speak our own goddamn language. That's all. Let us live the way we have lived in our you know, regions. Let us speak our language. Well, this is what happened to them. But it continued. It's not only the Kurds. 1960s, people started seeing the Vietnam War. People started opposing the US imperialism and the way that Turkey was being integrated into imperialism. And these people that you see are students. They were mowed down. And those people who threw bomb to these people, Abdullah Gül became the president of Turkey through the AKP party, the Justice Party. He was literally one of the ones who threw the bomb and killed people. And it doesn't stop in 1960s. Many you know, counter-revolutions or coups, and 1980 goes into an open fascism. I'm using the word open fascism because the opposite of it is not bourgeois democracy. The opposite of it is the concealed fascism. When the military goes, you don't go into democracy, you go into another form of fascism, which I think we're going to see over here as well with if Trump stays a bit. Because you're going to have your, you know, the assembly, the you know, the courts and everything. But courts are stacked, you know, everything is stacked, so they don't need a military, you know, to come in and crack your heads. They got you covered from right and left. So that's called the concealed fascism. This guy was a young guy that they wanted to execute him, but his age was not, you know, at the where they can execute him. So they had the courts increase his age and then hung him. 1984, 1983. I'm sorry, 1983. Fascism does not come with votes and does not leave with votes, and most importantly, bourgeois democracy is unaffordable in a neo-colonial country. Unaffordable. They cannot, because they are giving, you know, their profits to the, you know, imperialists and everything. They don't have funds left to put a good show, a theater of democracy. They can't even do that. So that's why it's open. Now, we talked about, you know, the capital integration, imperialism, finance capital, and the one way that Turkey can, you know, fund itself is through privatizations. This started in 1986, mostly. Up until that time, Turkey tried to develop with the government factories, government, you know, owning, people owning most of the production. So now the sellout time came, and so as you can see, through 1986 and 2017, from $2.2 billion, it went up to $69 billion worth of sales of public properties.
Mehmet, you're pretty much on completely on time.
Really?
It's 11:30.
What are you whispering to each other?
11:35.
Oh, time?
Yeah. How much more time do you need?
Give me 15 minutes.
It's 11:34 now.
If everybody's okay with that.
Is 15 minutes okay? Okay. Just a minute, I want to go fast now. I wanted to, yeah, go through statistics here and there. Kurdish issue is one of the things. It has never been resolved. Stalin, I think, gives two drivers of history. One is when you want to analyze a society. One thing that is the main contradiction, he calls it, main contradiction. That is mostly true in the same contradiction happens in the capitalist societies, and that is the contradiction between labor and capital. This actually defines the landscape. But this continues for a long extended time. So you can analyze capitalism, you can analyze labor, and that gives you the contradiction between the main contradiction. But then times come in, and when other contradictions take the lead, They are the lead contradictions. If you want to analyze, let's say today, maybe, you know, the leading contradiction of the United States, I would say, is with Trump and the people. Okay? We still have the main contradiction, which is capital and labor. But today, the leading contradiction, it could become a Syria war, Venezuelan war of the day. So Turkey's leading contradiction is the Kurdish question. It has not been resolved, and that dogs every single day of Turkish life. And Turkey doesn't know how to solve it. Because, remember, one nation, one land, one leader, one language. How are they going to step back from it? So we see these anti-democratic things, starting with the Kurds. What is happening is that democracy has completely eroded, and Turkey is now looking at, you know, other bosses. Here are the academicians. More than 1,000 academicians and teachers now are on trial or in prison. All have been fired because they said they preferred peace. This is it. They said they preferred peace against war. This is their crime. Thousands of academicians in prison because of this. Here are the, you know, some of them died, professors that are, not all in prison, but they are one by one going in, and they are being punished. All of them fired, and they have to sell books, as you can see here, you know, to survive. They have opened cafes. We have professors now running cafes because they can't find a job. These are the lawyers. They are in prison. They are under torture. Why? Because a mine had collapsed, and the mine owner is very close to the government, a corporation, and these lawyers defended the mine workers. This is their indictment. How can you defend mine workers? So they broke the arm of these lawyers, and as you can see, the soldiers they are not even allowed to speak in the court. These are lawyers. These are other lawyers because they protested the massacres of ISIS, and they are charged with insulting the president. These are doctors who published a report saying that war is bad for public health. And now they are going to go to prison for saying this. I can give you examples for 6 hours. But then comes the elections. March 31st elections, where nothing can summarize the elections better than this cartoon. Opposition is in prison, press is tied up, Erdogan has a gun on his hand on the ballot box, and he claims we have free elections in Turkey. This is what I mean by the concealed fascism. Okay? The leaders, I don't need to go, is, you know, Erdogan is, of course, a corrupt leader. And the opposition is the National Republican Party, Republican People's Party. They have no vision. They want to do what the AKP does, but in a secular way. They don't oppose capitalism. They don't oppose privatization. So why do they exist? Nobody knows. This is the Nationalist Movement Party. The guy I showed you speaking on the microphone, on you know, saying they are loyal to NATO. Well, this is his party, and they are openly fascist. They are openly Nazi. They have street gangs called Grey Wolves that come and make you toe the line. If you are, they raid the strikes in factories if the workers go on strike. So he's in coalition with the AKP party now, and the real opposition comes with the HDP. It's a so-called Kurdish party. Yes, most of the Kurds vote for them, but they openly claim that they are not Kurdish, but they're the party of Turkey. And many progressives leftists are in this party. So he was arrested along with other party officials for 4 years. He stayed arrested, detained, not even knowing what he is being charged with. And now finally they are starting to charge him, and he's doing his defenses. And this is him in prison. So the elections, I'm not going to go in. Many places the Justice Party again did win, but most important thing is, as Erdogan himself said, he says, if you rule Istanbul, you rule the whole country. And AKP lost in all of the major cities. This is very interesting because with all the shenanigans, with all the rigging of the elections, if they can lose, it shows that there's a huge opposition and it's emerging. Because capitalism is cannot reply to people's daily lives. And people are fed up with it. So in order to stop the news getting around, the broadcast institutions stopped 89 programs from airing. Anybody who's broadcasting have to reply to the broadcast institution. And they fine you huge sums of money if you don't, if you criticize the government. These are the journalists, and Turkey is the 157th in the world on press freedom. 130 journalists are under arrest. Many journalists have been killed, beaten. Just yesterday, a journalist who had criticized the government's contracts with the corporations just got beaten outside his home. This is a newspaper even in Cyprus called Africa. Erdogan openly said in one of his speeches, was that newspaper Africa, saying next day this is what happened to it. The opposition and very famous artists were called in to do a clip on the theater day, such a simple, stupid, innocent thing, right? And then they found out that they were lured there without knowing, and this became a propaganda video for Erdogan. And all of them were just revolted and saying, what the hell, we did not do this. But that's how it is. So any artist that is supporting the opposition, the presidential archive is keeping a name of them, and they can never find any gigs at all. Now they can. Now I'm going to end it with this. We said that age of imperialism is the age of monopoly capital and finance capital. This book I'm reading, and I'm really impressed. It shows you what the Federal Reserve Bank in the United States does and how it affects. It goes country by country. I don't think it has Turkey, or I haven't come there yet, but you can learn what it did to China. One simple change in the United States financial policy, which, of course, every time they take, change the financial, it is to help the big finance monopolies of Chase, of Wells Fargo, and what it does to Brazil, what it did to Mexico, what it does to the world. The heart of finance capitalism, imperialism, is running and beating here in the United States with the Federal Reserve and the financial institutions. I would recommend that people read it. Then you'll understand any country in the world, what's going on there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That was a very good segue into finance capital, which we don't have here, but we do depend upon people for supporting this. We are a grassroots organization. We don't got no finance capital to support us, so that's why we prefer to rely on you people. So if you have any money, please put it in the Nebel Proctor Marxist Library cap. And maybe after this is done, we'll be back in the black. Right now, we're a little behind it, but we're doing okay. I also want to mention a couple things that are going on next week. Our comrade